In your experience, talking to your customers, working with their actual deployments, as they're racking and stacking Intel infrastructure, um, where are you seeing the most? I hate to use the word because nothing is really wasted, but where do you see the biggest issues in the infrastructure where customers are having an aha that they needed more here, less there? Just some examples, some experience on that. What's the most underfed part of the infrastructure?
So one of the right now, I would say the most underfed part of the infrastructure would be kind of the GPU accelerators,
Yeah.
where the inferencing is happening, because the there's kind of a we've been in the mode of deploy as many GPUs as we can,
Hmm.
as we can afford, as we can put power in, so we can get budget for whatever, right? And then partly because we didn't want to get left behind, partly because we knew we needed it. Like we knew we needed an amount of AI inferencing, so we bought the GPUs.
Right.
So now it's how do I keep these expensive GPUs busy? And as we get into kind of the agentic flow, um, what we've seen is that the GPUs tend to be spend more time idle, I should say. It's not a guarantee. It just depends on the use case, but they tend to spend more time idle than people expected them to, right? Just because they're waiting on these task completions, they're waiting on these tool calls and other things. So that's where I would see some of that happening. And then the other side is I'm absolutely hearing from a lot of customers around how much they're spending on AI, and the number of tokens consumed to do kind of this agentic like these loops and things like that. It sounds contradictory a little bit because I just said that you're not feeding your GPUs enough, but then you're also generating a lot of tokens. Um,
Yeah.
it- it's it's because more often than not, you're where it's kind of like two models. If you're hosting your own AI, your GPUs probably aren't as busy as they should be. If you're
Right.
consuming an AI as a service like Anthropic or Claude or something like that, you're probably using way more tokens than you can afford.
Right. Yeah. You're damned if you do. You're damned if you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it really is, and you mentioned this earlier, it really is becoming like a systems level problem, right?
Right.
It's not like we're shifting from that, hey, how many tokens per second can I generate to a how many how many useful tasks am I completing? You know, um, how many correctly completed tasks am I getting done per second, per minute, per whatever, right? And you're trying to optimize now that balance between all of your other compute resources and your inferencing capacity.
You and I talked about this a little bit the other day as well around, we talked earlier in this call about, the definition of the SLA for the IT professional that is deploying infrastructure. Um, it strikes me that uh, at this point in time, particularly for folks listening that are in the planning stages, plan for not just the definition of your personal success, right? So how's your board or your manager or whoever else going to measure your performance, but as a firm, you know, there has been a certain amount of hysteria around acquiring GPUs. Okay. Now we can have a philosophical debate as to why that has been. Doesn't really matter. It's happened. And I have heard from my own customers, yeah, we got a mandate down from, you know, the cloudy ether, uh, make AI work for shareholders. Okay. So the definition of a usable outcome strikes me as being very, very important. And define your objectives up front around what problems do we actually want to solve. Like try to bound them a little bit so that you can then assess what's the return on the investment, which is the, the generic bucket for what you're talking about. What is the return on investment for this AI infrastructure that we're building against the objectives of the firm, not the objectives of, and I put myself in this bucket, the starry eyed engineers that are just amazed at what can be done